Okay, now quickly, just at the end of all of my videos, I always ask the veteran, for the young people that may be watching this out there, could you give them any advice or anything about your thoughts on your time in the war or war itself? What would you say to those kids if you had a chance?
Well, I just got to say this, war is a horrible thing, and I hate to think what the next war would be, because you won't even see the people you're fighting. You're pressing buttons over here to hit somebody over there. I think it'll be the end of the world, I really think, although they've said that before. But I just say to these young people, if you're called to defend your country, the country's well worth defending.
Thank you for that. That's so good. That you may be able to give the young people to do
Okay,
it.
yeah. Well, this is my advice to anybody who wants. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. You can do anything you want to do if you want to do it. I enjoyed my military career, and I've had to do it all over. I hope it would be the same.
And would you advise young people to join the forces?
Certainly. It's the best way.
Can you say that?
Yeah, I would advise anybody to join the forces. It may be different now than it was in my day, but at least I enjoyed my time. You get the best training in the world, and you get the best buddies, and the best thing you're going to learn is teamwork. He relies on you, you rely on him, and that's the way it should be. And if you know something, don't keep it in because you're going to be smarter. You tell your buddy about it and let him learn the same way you learn. What he learns, he'll tell you, and you learn from him, and he learns from you. And don't ever get away from the teamwork idea.
Right on.
I enjoyed working with everybody I've ever worked with, and I especially enjoyed my boy soldiers because I think they were the smartest and the best kids.
And you think that program should be brought back?
I definitely think it should be brought back. That's just I used to say, don't give me a kid with a university degree because I want a kid off the farm that can put a pitman arm on a hay mower. And the lieutenant would say, what the hell is that? And I said, I didn't think you'd know.
Our videos, with our interviews, we always ask the veteran if they had anything to say to the young people out there that may be watching this about war or your time in the war. What would you say to those kids?
That's the greatest design, mankind, the greatest achievement in inventing since the first recorded history is mankind's endeavor to create faster, bigger, and better means to kill his fellow man. Our greatest achievement in recorded history.
Ironic. That's our greatest achievement, yeah. So,
And we're still at it.
Yeah. So, would you do it again if you were asked?
Oh yeah. The greatest adventure going.
And you think that the military had any part in that?
Oh yeah, I think it helps you grow, it helps you mature. You're either going to grow or mature or go the other way.
Yeah.
And I think it helped me become a man.
Yeah, okay. Well, true.
Yeah.
True, yeah. Well, at the end of our videos, I always ask the veteran if they have anything to say about your time in the military and what it did for you. And if you were to give some advice to kids through this camera, what would you say to those young people?
Oh, I think that if you're sitting around and not knowing what to do, join the military, talk to people, find out what you want to do, if you want to be in the infantry, the armored corps, the engineers, and go in there with the right attitude and learn, because these days they give you an education. You can learn a super trade. You can go in the Air Force. If you're mechanically and you've got the education, you could be aircraft mechanic. You could give you a super education and a future. I wouldn't say to anybody, don't ever do it. I'd say do it and go in there with the right state of mind and you'll come out of it richer. That's my advice.
Well, at the end of our videos, we always ask if the veteran has anything to say to the young people out there that may be watching this video about war or your time in the war, any advice or anything that you could give those young people. What would you say to them?
Well,
just for them to think, to realize that war was a terrible thing, and that if it could be avoided, it would be to everybody's advantage.
I always ask at the end of our videos when I'm talking to a veteran, I ask them this question: if you have anything to say to the young people out there that may be watching this video about war or your time in the war, what would you say to those young people if you could look right in the camera and tell them?
I would say as follows, and I would explain why I was saying it, giving it in Latin. Salus populi suprema est lex. The good of the people is the supreme law. Now that means that politicians cannot secretly make decisions and then force you to obey them, because it destroys what is demos to people, kratos to rule, democracy. And that's what World War I and World War II was all about. It was democracy. Why? You had a fellow in German in World War I, and you had Hitler in World War II, and they were trying to be the big bosses. And you still have a lot of places, as you know, whether it be this country or the other country, whether it be Syria or whether it be what have you, in the world, that still have the people who self-appointed and self-anointed, I call them, and they have those positions solely because they want to make money. And that's my strong point, that I talk to a lot of young people, or I did up to about a year ago or 2 years back. I'm now 95, so I don't go, my memory retention is not what it used to be, but I still speak to the young people and tell them what it means by salus populi. The good of the people is the supreme law, and it's called democracy. That is my strong belief.
We always ask the veteran if they have anything to say to the young people out there that may be watching this video, or your time in the war or about the war. Could you give any advice or any thoughts on that maybe for the young people that are watching this?
Don't volunteer for anything. I volunteer for everything, and they still get my throat cut.
Yeah. But would you do it again if your country asked you, especially for World War II?
I guess it would. I do.
Even all the hardships
All the hardship.
you went through,
But I know they wouldn't take it next time.
Yeah, you know the ropes now.
I know the rope.
Yeah.
They did the same as the Second World War. There was a lot of officers lost their lives just by being what they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
You got to work with the men, the officers, everybody, sergeants. They got to work with the men. In Korea, it was just the opposite. The officer never worked with them, and the officer should never. If little bit of problem you got, first thing he does, you're charged.
Yeah.
That's how I don't buy that crap. Talk to the person first.
Yeah.
They never do.
Yeah.
They wouldn't talk to you. They wouldn't do nothing.
Would you advise any kids that are out there maybe watching this to join the Army or not?
Oh no, they could join the army. That would be up to themselves. They could, but
Do you think it would be good for all of our students and all of our people to spend a year in the Army or 6 months in the Army?
wouldn't hurt them.
At the end of all my videos, I always ask the veteran if they had anything to say to the young people that may be watching this video about your time in the war or war itself. What would you say to those kids?
Well, what I'd like to say to all young children like my own is that you always do your best. Sometimes things don't look as good as they should. But if you keep at it, if you're honest, and do your best, you'll never get blamed for anything. And you'll know yourself that you've done well. And I would say that you should do like the Boy Scouts. Do some good duty every day. And believe in God. Fear the Lord. And no one else. And of course I have to say amen.
Well, listen, I'm just so honored to have the chance to sit here with you. I know you hear this all the time, but I just want to say thanks for having me in your home. And all the young people that are watching this, you can take a lesson from this man.
I have so many great memories, Jigs, and you know, just to wrap this thing up, I always ask the veteran at the end of the story if you had anything to say to the young people out there that may be watching this about the war or your time in the war, what would you say to those kids?
Well, first of all, whenever I start talking to them, I preface my conversation by I'm not advocating war in any form. I don't think wars are a great way of solving problems, but there is a time when talking doesn't do any good anymore. And if somebody hadn't taken a bull by the horns and gone over there, and Canada is very funny this way, very strange this way. Canada has never gained 1 inch of ground through any military action. They've fought many, many wars, died many, many places, but never gained any territorial gains. And Canada's the only nation that ever done that. And for that, I think we should be proud to be Canadians. But be proud of the heritage, be proud of your fellows who did fight, and support them when they do fight. But to say that we shouldn't do this, the people who say that are usually the people who, after something happens, they'll say, well, why didn't the government do something about that before it happened? And how many times has that happened? Why didn't you do something before you knew this was going to happen? And when they do it, then they condemn for that. So I tell them that, and I said, I'm not advocating war. I didn't enjoy the war. I didn't hate it, mind you. I had lots of, and people ask me, what was the worst day you ever had? Well, now that's something. Now you look back, what was the worst day? Well, I might say that being called for burial detail, to go into a field and start picking up bodies and wrapping them in their blankets and burying them. But then again, I had another day which was really bad. And that was a day when we had just lost an armored car. It was called a Smith car. There was 3 Smith boys in it. One was D.A. Smith was the driver, whose wife had just had twins, boys in England. We just got the telegram of 3 days before. And L.M. Smith and L.R. Smith. And the car was brewed up, and L.M. and L.R. were both wounded. They were out beside the car being treated, and we saw D.A.'s hand come above the top of the turret with the car burning, and he fell back in again when an explosion took place. And he was killed right then and there. And we felt very close to him, mainly because we'd all read the telegram from his wife in England that had had the twin boys. You know, these are realities of war. Is that a bad day? And on that particular day, I had a headache like you wouldn't believe, and it was in August, and it was hot, about 40, 50, 100, 102 degrees Fahrenheit, and I was hungry, and I went out by the corner of the armored car, and I got out a can of jam, which looked like potted meat, where you peel back the top of it, and I got a biscuit, and I peeled off, and I took the jam on.
Right.
I took the jam on my biscuit and stuck it in my mouth, and when I did it, a hornet got on the jam. And I stuck the hornet in my mouth, and he stung me on the tongue. Well, put my tongue full up in my mouth. I couldn't talk, I couldn't speak, I couldn't eat. And just then the officer said, let's go, boys. Well, if you ever had a day that you should have stayed in bed, I think that was one of them. But these things happen, life goes on, another pothole in the road of life. But I like to tell the children that, and they appreciate what I'm saying. I'm not advocating war. I'm not saying war is a good thing. I'm telling it like it is, and that's it. The realities of war are killings. And what did I do all the time? I'm responsible for 500 some odd. They calculate every action. How many you killed, how many you did of this and one thing and that, and 570. I'm responsible for 1,300 prisoners. You know, that armored car. Each one is responsible for so much. And that's it. That's the way it's calculated. You have a plane going up, they're shooting down planes, he's responsible for 8 planes down, you know.
Well, Jigs, thank you very much, sir. It's been this is actually probably one of the best interviews I've ever had.
Yes.
You're very frank.
Great
You're very
15
honest.
minutes.
Great 4 hours.
Oh, is it?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your service, and we'll see each other again. Hopefully, you'll be able to join us next year on the battlefield tour
I
with all
certainly
the
would
kids.
try that, yes, I'd love to.
Well, you're sure are welcome. I'll tell you that.